More to get to. I wanted to spend a little time now to talk about Aidan Hutchinson because I know we kind of talked about him earlier in the week and how I do expect Aidan to start putting together some big performances. Even though he has shown so far he's the only capable defensive lineman on this roster. And that's true. Both things can be true. I expect a sack out of Aidan. He's also by far the best defensive lineman you have. So both those things are true. Woodward Sports put a graphic up kind of putting into perspective what Aidan's been doing this season, leading the NFL, or at least being tied in the NFL with pressures. Now, this is PFF pressures. I don't know specifically how they measure pressures, like within a foot of somebody. I don't know how they measure pressures, but regardless, Aidan Hutchinson, TJ Watt, if you're in the category of TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Cam Jordan, Jalen Carter, and Carl Granderson, then that's a big time. That's a big time accolade for Aidan Hutchinson. Now, the takeaway I have from this graphic, Sam Flannel, this dude needs help. He needs help bad. Because again, you look at T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, right? T.J. Watt. Who's the
Alex Highsmith?
Thank you. Who's a beast, by the way?
Yeah.
Highsmith. Cam Jordan has help on the defensive line.
Carl Granderson, he's right there.
Carl Granderson.
Yeah, Carl Granderson. But also Brian Bursey, who's been looking good. Jalen Carter, the help he has on his defensive line. Aidan Hutchinson is tied for first with Aleem McNeil next to him. Not saying Aleem's trash, but damn! This is a defensive line that besides Aidan, they had zero pressures. A donut for pressures, essentially, between Aleem and Levi Onwuzurike. Now, James Houston was the guy that you could depend on dating back to last season, but he's out for the foreseeable future. My question is, Sam Flannel, what the hell should Brad Holmes do? Are you confident in who they have in-house to step up? Or you think he's got to get a trade done? Or maybe sign a free agent? Bring more help in this defensive line room?
Of course I'm not confident in what they have besides Aidan Hutchinson. I would have been confident if they had James Houston, and he was playing. First of all, what the hell was James Houston doing on special teams anyway? The man was an 8-sack guy last year, and now he's hurt, and he's going to be gone for a very, very long time. But so far, the Detroit Lions, outside of Aidan Hutchinson, have not shown the ability to rush the passer. Charles Harris, are you sure he's even played? John Kaminsky, I would say, at least against the Seahawks, he does. He was a disappointment. Certainly that defensive line. We gave you the PFF numbers yesterday. Benito Jones, Levi Onwuzurike, and Aleem McNeil probably played one of the worst games a defensive line has ever played in the history of the NFL. Romeo Okwara hasn't played. Broderick Martin hasn't played. Josh Pascal is hurt also and might be out for a very, very long time. You've got Isaiah Buggs hasn't played either. So it just kind of seems like on the defensive line, the cupboard is, I would say, bare. But despite all that, I know they were much more healthy in the Kansas City Chiefs game because they've had a lot of injuries since then.
Right.
Aidan Hutchinson wrecked that game. You could argue that he was one of the most instrumental players in winning you that game, putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes, making him throw before it's ready, and really just kind of being the leader of a defensive unit that only gave up 20 points in that game. It's just what we saw in that Seattle Seahawks game. Did the defense play well enough to win in that one? Absolutely not. Was Aidan Hutchinson the problem? Good God, no. But he definitely, I would say, wasn't the solution either. It is really, really hard to play to get pressure on the quarterback as an edge rusher when your defensive line is playing as poorly as the Lions was against the Seahawks. But when you're Aidan Hutchinson, and this is not a criticism of him, I love Aidan Hutchinson. I still do. I think he could be a defensive player of the year someday. At some point in that game, you had to be the solution. You had to rise up playing against backup tackles and get to the quarterback and make a sack, even hit the quarterback, which he didn't do either. So I would say this whole getting 13 pressures thing, it is very, very, very impressive overall. But there's definitely levels to this because what does Micah Parsons and TJ Watt and Cam Jordan and Jalen Carter have done? They have hit the quarterback, they have sacked the quarterback, they have had multiple tackles for loss. Aidan Hutchinson has had neither of both. Do I expect him to get it this week against Atlanta? I sure as hell hope so. But I would say Aidan Hutchinson's season overall has been good. He's been probably one of their better defensive players, certainly their best defensive lineman. But I want to see him take it to that level where I expect him to be, which is a perennial Pro Bowler, a perennial All-Pro, and a Defensive Player of the Year someday. I didn't see that against Seattle. He needs to step up against Atlanta.
So I have two parts to what I'm about to say. The first part is, from the perspective of Brad Holmes, right? You have Charles Harris, who first year here had 7.5 sacks. You have Romeo Okwara, who before he was hurt had 10 sacks. You have John Kaminsky, who showed a lot last year, had a couple sacks. and was setting up a lot of things for Aidan Hutchinson. Those dudes need to step up. Like they do. Like again, there was a lot of raving about Charles Harris before the season. So some of it, yes, I won't blame coaching, but the other part of it, those guys just need to step up. That's why Dan talked about it. You need some guys you can depend on, and I think those guys are who the coaching staff thought would show up. Now, the other part of that is, and both things can be true, and I want Lucas to give me his reaction to this statement and tell me if I'm off, out of pocket here. Two things can be true. Aidan Hutchinson does get held a lot. He does get double-teamed. The other part of that is, if Aidan Hutchinson is who we think he is, you don't think Nick Bosa gets double-teamed?
Never. He's never got double-teamed a day in his life, right? Micah Parsons either. No,
Micah Parsons, even though Micah does have help. But you look at some of the best edge rushers in the league, you're going to get double-teamed. You're going to get held. He has to overcome that. And I know that sounds, whoa, he's getting held. He got held at the NLCL game. Listen, Aidan Hutchinson, you selected him number 2 overall. That dude needs to just make plays. He does. Now, he's leading the NFL in pressures. He's doing pretty good so far, and he does need help. But the whole, making excuses for Aidan thing, I can't get behind, Lucas. I can't. The one thing I will agree with is he needs help on the defensive line. But saying, he gets held, he gets double-teamed, those don't work for me. Because if you think Aidan will be a top 10 edge rusher, it shouldn't matter.
And you're absolutely – and that's where the concern against Atlanta Falcons, where it's you can't be – absolutely confident heading into this week because there's no help for Hutch. And one of the most important things in the NFL in general is pass rush. But the thing that kind of drives me nuts about that whole chart is I want you to go back. Who did the Lions play these first 2 weeks? Patrick Mahomes, Geno Smith, very mobile quarterbacks. And when you don't have an interior presence, guess where? When Hutch is setting that edge, they're running right up the middle. After that Geno Smith intentional grounding, it was a 17-yard gain to put the Seahawks right back into Geno Smith rolling out of the pocket. The week before that, they played Patrick Mahomes, the most underrated mobile quarterback, just because he doesn't use his mobility all the time, but when he does, it kills you. The Eagles, who'd they play week 1? Mac Jones.
They played Mac Jones.
Who'd they play last week?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Who did the Eagles just play last week?
Vikings.
Yeah,
the Vikings.
Kirk Cousins.
So Kirk Cousins, 2 mobile quarterbacks. The Saints, they played Bryce Young, mobile quarterback, but he was scared for his life, had no clue what to do out there. The Cowboys, they played Zach Wilson, and then the week before that, they played Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. So the teams that these guys are playing against, offensively at the quarterback position, are nowhere near Patrick Mahomes and Geno Smith as far for the defensive end to contain them and have help. Aidan Hutchinson needs help, but it's also week 2 of the NFL season, people. There's going to be huge asterisks. So you're looking at these lists now, and you're going to be like, when it's end of season, you're like, how the fuck was he on there? How the fuck was he on? There's going to be plenty of time for Aidan Hutchinson for this to come back to earth, and I think it will. But for that to happen, he definitely needs help. I think right now there's nobody you can go trade for. It's too early in the NFL season. Everybody in their NFL eyes, unless they're 0-2, unless you're the Arizona Cardinals.
They like the roster.
They like their, okay, we got our chance to Washington.
Right.
Everybody's like, go get Chase Young. You think Washington, who's 2-0 in the NFC East with Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts in their division, is going to give up Chase Young right now? No. Maybe if they were 0-5, but they're 2-0 right now. So what they need to do is they need to put in Isaiah Buggs, because you just saw what the interior of this defensive line did last week. Mm-hmm. Absolutely nothing. You know what Isaiah Buggs did on the field? Absolutely nothing, because he's at home. So if you have 2 absolutely nothings and you're going to try to do the one absolutely nothing that didn't work last week, that's insanity. Isaiah Buggs is not only a player that you saw last year at home against Minnesota in Lambeau make huge contributions, but what did you guys just say earlier about C.J. Gardner-Johnson? He's that battery plug. He's that juice. Isaiah Buggs brings the juice, and he's going to help these guys
That's true.
elevate. That's what I don't get about this whole situation. You're going to leave Benito Jones out there? I'm sorry, but who is Benito Jones motivating? What play have we ever seen Benito Jones make? I can go back to numerous plays of watching what Isaiah Buggs has done for this Detroit Lions team. So that's where it comes. First step, put in Isaiah Buggs. Put in a big body that you have seen. We saw it last year make impactful plays. So why are we going away from it? I don't know, but it's time to adjust.
I'm sorry, Benito Jones ain't motivating me to make a sandwich. Those are just the facts, man.
He's not doing anything out there.
Jeff Lammy says Pascal means more to the Lions D-line than most people realize. Listen, that's my guy. And again, the value of Josh Pascal is he can move all around, and he actually creates pressure. So again, I agree with that statement. And by the way, no one's blaming Aidan Hutchinson. Last week, is it disappointing that he didn't get a sack with 2 new tackles, right? 2 substitute tackles. yes, it's disappointing. Now, am I